Hello, everyone.
Commissioner, how are you?
Doing well. Judge, how are you?
I'm well. Hope you and your family are too.
We're doing well, and thank you for joining us, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Just kind of want to give the citizens an update on services and everything going on in Fulton County.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to see. Looks like we've got 11 participants so far, and we'll go ahead and get started. It's 12 o'clock or a couple minutes after. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us for this virtual town hall, which will provide updates regarding Fulton County government's response to COVID-19, as well as the services that are provided by Fulton County and for Fulton County residents. Just as a base point, there are 1,074 District 5 residents have tested positive for COVID-19. That makes up approximately 43% of Fulton County's COVID-19 cases. And so I'm continuing to work with other elected officials that represent communities within the district in order to seek solutions to our common problems. And, you know, we're all in this together, and just thankful for everyone for being here so that we can continue to fight this together. Today, I've got Fulton County executive staff and elected officials on this call, on this town hall, to make sure so that they can share pertinent information and updates, again, about the services provided. Before we start, I'm going to ask our Pastor C.J. Holloman to give us an invocation. Pastor Holloman, are you there?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Vice Chair, let us have a word of prayer. Father, we stretch our hands to thee. No other help we know. If thou withdraw thy hand from thee, wherever shall we go? Father, we come before you right now, thanking you for another day. Thank you, God, for keeping us and waking us up this morning. Thank you, God, for watching over us. Thank you, God, for the many blessings you have stored upon us. God, we first of all humble ourselves and ask for forgiveness for any wrongdoing, whether we acknowledge or admit it or even are aware of it. We ask that forgiveness right now. God, we ask that you have your way in this forum, that you be with the commissioner and all those who are part of the staff. We thank God for everyone who's in this to help one another. Lord, we ask that you heal our land. We ask that you watch over our children, watch over all of us, oh God. That goes from all civic leaders on down to the lay people. God, we know that you're able to do it, and we simply just say thank you in advance. Now have your way in this forum, in this town hall. Be with each and every one of us. This we ask in your matchless Son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so up next, I'm hoping that we have our county manager on the line, Dick Anderson, so that he can give us a brief update on Fulton County's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair. Can you hear us?
Yes.
You got two for the price of one. The chairman's here with me in the war room, so he can also add to my comments. And by the way, been here every day, side by side, which I think the staff and certainly I personally hugely appreciate. What I thought I'd do quickly,
Yes.
Mr. Vice
Thank
Chair.
you, Mr. Chair.
Vice, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
What I thought I would do, Mr. Vice Chair, real quickly is just answer three questions. Where are we? What are some of the next steps? And then when do we get back to normal, which is maybe the more imponderable of the three. But starting with where we are, you've already mentioned District 5. I'll just start at the county level. We have 2,700 as of yesterday, a little bit over COVID-19 cases. and over 100 deaths. In fact, we had our highest day for deaths, double digit 11 yesterday. So we're still in quite a serious situation, but I do believe we're moving to another phase. The good news in all of this is our capacity planning, which we did with the support of the vice chair and the board, with our healthcare and state partners, was very helpful to both flatten the curve, but then also plan for ample capacity in our hospitals for beds, ICU beds, and ventilators. And as we said here today, we have about an excess of, in round numbers, 800 beds not being used that could be used, about 120 to 150 ICU beds, and about that same number of ventilators. So we have averted, I think, what could have been a catastrophic result. And one good indicator of that, while we had one of the worst days for deaths in Fulton County, we have revised our estimates down with a fairly sophisticated model that's used nationally, from what was in the 400 to 430 range down to probably more likely in the 200 range. So I'm hopeful that that holds, and we have truly saved that many lives as a consequence of this good planning. In addition to this planning, and Anna Roach, our Chief Operating Officer, will talk more about this on the agenda later, the board authorized $10 million for community support. So it's kind of do the long-term plan, but get out immediately and begin to address issues in the community. So you'll hear more about things that are around senior services, particularly food support, income insecurity, and even an innovative small business loan program, which was launched with both a $1.5 million allocation from the Board of Commissioners and then an equal $1.5 million allocation from the Development Authority of Fulton County. And that's been enormously responded to. And as we see some of the problems with the federal program, I think we can't underestimate the value of speed and getting out into the community and doing something. So we very much appreciate our board allowing us to do so. On the what are our next steps, I think still social distancing and many of the precautions that we have taken, particularly with personal protective equipment, are going to be necessary as we move forward. So let me talk about a couple of things before I get into that. Number one, what our next step is right now is significantly expanded testing. I'm sure heard that on the news, and it truly is something that more and more citizens are going to want to avail themselves of, both as they either have symptoms or if they are preparing to come back to work, or they just want to assure themselves that they are not asymptomatic and spreading the virus to family members and friends. So we, this past week, have expanded the number of locations in Fulton County from 2 to 6, and are targeting out of those locations alone to test over 50,000 citizens in the month of May. Those locations are a combination of our own, which are done at Wolf Creek Amphitheater and 4700 North Parkway in Alpharetta. National Guard locations, which are at Turner Field and Greenbrier Mall. And then 2 retail operators, CVS and Walgreens, which are done in the core of the city of Atlanta and then in Johns Creek. In addition to those, many hospitals are doing testing. So we're now beginning to develop a report, which I had the first look at yesterday, that's giving us more insight into the amount of testing that Grady, Piedmont, Emory are doing, which adds to a number that we thought we were at about 27,000 for last month. Now I think we're closer to 40,000 or so. So they are substantially testing more for patients that are already in their hospitals, where we are testing for folks well before they go to a hospital. So you should see more. And Mr. Vice Chair, one of the things that you challenged us to do was to think aggressively about marketing and public information. We've had our first meeting with an ad agency this morning. We got 2 more scheduled for this afternoon, and we hope to bring something to the board next Wednesday that lays out a more aggressive advertising awareness campaign using multiple channels, everything from faith-based organizations all the way up to mass media to get the word out on the importance of testing. The other thing in the what are our next steps that we're doing also, Mr. Vice Chair, you've been very much a proponent and involved in protecting our jail population. We have narrowed a list of providers down to 2 or 3 that we're getting ready to make a decision on that will provide us isolation units at both of our primary jail facilities in Rice Street and in Union City. So the concept there is to build, much like the state of Georgia has done at the World Congress Center, a facility that could house from anywhere from 100 to 200 at Rice Street and probably in the neighborhood of 25 or so at Union City, where our female population is housed. And the purpose of those would be for isolation of folks that have COVID-19, but yet are still in the jail population. Also, the good news is right now we only have 1 active case. We have about 7 to 8 under investigation in our jail, and a number who have been treated successfully and or released. So while we have not had an outbreak of significant proportions, we want to plan for the worst, as we say, and hope for the best. So we're most likely to, again, make a decision on that in the next few days. On the when do we get back to normal, what we're beginning to think about is a couple of things, and Anna Roach has been instrumental in putting this plan together, and we'll be sharing it with our Board of Commissioners next week. Is first of all, we are trying to follow the data that I mentioned in terms of new infection rates, death rates, and the like, to see is the virus abating in Fulton County before, as a government, we move forward aggressively on reopening. And I think what you will see is, rather than some aggressive moves, you will see more of a phased approach. So our guiding principle is going to be safety first for the public and for our employees. And as we plan that, I think we will probably focus more on essential services. And I'm very pleased that 2 of our chief judges who have been real leaders in our efforts, Judge Turk and Judge Brasher, can talk more specifically to this, but certainly the expansion of court services is probably first, as well as tax services. And then I think the second phase is more our libraries and perhaps behavioral health centers. We maintain in a digital format a lot of our library offerings, as well as in a digital format and on a very limited basis, behavioral health. So we'll look closely again, which will probably again be more limited locations, limited hours than what we would have been if we were fully open. And then last will be senior centers and arts centers. I do not see that we will have a perspective on reopening those anytime soon. Again, the good news is I applaud both of those departments for really aggressively, with a spirit of service, going to digital and offering things for the public. And then last, what gates all of this, and we're doing detailed planning right now, Mr. Vice Chair, on having the proper amount of protective equipment, both for employees as well as enhancements to our buildings like shields and the like, to ensure that when we do open, we will be able to open safely. So we're thinking through all those options. One I didn't mention was temperature screening at every entrance. So all of that, if you can imagine it, we took a look at some of this yesterday, are in such volumes like 90,000 face masks and 2,700 gallons of hand sanitizer. So any of us that have tried to find Purell on the shelf can know that that's not an easy order to fulfill. So I think that is going to gate how fast and in how many locations we're able to achieve a back to normal stance. So, Mr. Vice Chair, that's our report in terms of where we are. He's on mute. Mr. Vice Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Great report, and thanks to you and your team for all your hard work and dedication throughout this process. Looks like we've got Anna Roach coming up next to talk about community service and funding.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, for the opportunity to address constituents of District 5. The first couple of points of information that I had, the county manager covered, and you as well in your opening remarks, so I'll skip over those. They included the countywide infection rates as well as the statewide infection rates, and the ICU hospital bed and ventilator capacity. I think that's been sufficiently covered by the county manager. The test locations were also mentioned by the county manager. We have active locations at the Wolf Creek Amphitheater, the North Fulton Health Facility at 4700 Point Parkway, the Georgia State University Stadium. That is actually a testing site that is operated by the National Guard, but I do have information about the actual hours of operation for each of those. And the Greenbrier Mall location is a fourth testing site, and that one is also operated by the National Guard. Most of these testing sites are open from Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then they have Saturday hours from 9 a.m. to noon. The Georgia State Stadium and the Greenbrier Mall locations have Sunday hours as well. I'll jump into the county services that I want to point out that we have modified our services to provide more virtual options to our constituents, but especially in the area of senior services, where I'm going to start, there are many of our traditional services that are continuing even in our state of emergency. As examples, in-home care services that were provided prior to COVID are still in place as they were provided previously. Transportation services, and then home delivered meals as well as being provided. Seniors are very familiar and can continue to access those traditionally provided services by contacting the STAR line at 404-613-6000. Again, they're very used to that number. They know and are very familiar with that intake process. So continue to use StarLine to access those traditional services. In addition to those services, we have augmented and again, adjusted our services to accommodate the virtual nature of the world we're living in right now. So we're also providing grocery delivery directly to seniors, any senior who needs it. That can be accessed by calling the STAR line as well. So same telephone number. If you prefer email, you can email senior services at seniorservices@Fulton County GA. So any one of those services can be accessed by calling the STAR line or emailing senior services directly. Another very exciting thing that we are pleased to introduce is virtual programming. Our senior services staff has worked very hard at creating some virtual programming to engage with our seniors who are at home and frustrated about not being able to get out. They've got art classes, computer classes, fitness centers, fitness classes, life enrichment, and nutrition classes that our seniors can access Monday through Friday online. To register for those virtual classes, the website is fultoncountyga.gov/senior services-virtual classes. And again, I'll provide Commissioner Arrington's office all of the information on how to access these services so he can post it to his website for your convenience as well. The next area I'd like to talk a little bit about is the tremendous investment that the County Board of Commissioners has made in providing community services in this time of need and transition to COVID. The county manager mentioned a $10 million COVID fund that we have managed to get out of the door in 1/3 tranches every week for the last 3 weeks. And so we have infused $10 million worth of investment to our most vulnerable constituents over the last 3 weeks. We have a number of nonprofit partners that we are working with to deliver the services. We have over 50 partners that we're working with, so I won't list them all, but I will list the categories that we have tried to make sure that we target our investments. The first category is in meals and emergency assistance for the community at large. So any individual or family that is falling behind on things or having trouble meeting their basic needs for rent, mortgage, utilities, and food assistance, we have created a program where we have funded and partnered with nonprofits who do provide this service to the community. In order to access those services, if you fall in that category of being in need at this time, please do not hesitate to call the county's customer service line. They will get you directly contacted or with our providers. And that telephone number is 404-612-4000. That is the county's customer service line. If you prefer to go online and browse through the list of providers as well as their services, you can take a look on the county's website. It's our COVID-19 website. And by the way, our communications office, led by Jessica Corbett, has done a phenomenal job centralizing all of the information you could possibly need for COVID. And these services can be accessed through that website again as well. That website is fultoncountygA.gov/COVID-19. And then you can click additional links to the meal services to the community if you are in need at this time. The second category that we have targeted our funding into is meals and emergency assistance for seniors in particular. They are accessed the very same way. You can either call the STAR line, call the customer service line for the county, or visit the county's COVID website. And again, that includes rental assistance, mortgage assistance, as well as food access for seniors. The final area where we targeted funding was in isolation and quarantine, as well as testing for our homeless community. We partnered specifically with Mercy Care, who has a large portion of their business in this footprint of homeless services. And in order to access those services, Mercy Care will come to you. What their approach is or entailed was going to the 5 largest shelters in Fulton County to do widespread testing inside those shelters. And for the unsheltered population, they have in the phase 2 of that effort gone out into the community in encampments to test homeless individuals there. The exciting part about that initiative is that as they are testing seniors, as they are testing homeless individuals, they are engaging them into housing as well. So we're hoping that this effort is twofold in its results. One, that it provides a way to test homeless individuals that are in congregate settings, but more importantly, that those individuals get services and housing as a part of that effort as well. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that in the funding that we provided for community and senior support, I wanted to highlight the organizations that were specifically located in District 5. That's the Emmaus House, the Pittsburgh Neighborhood Collaborative, and the Andrew P. Stewart Center, also the Housing Justice League. All of those organizations provide emergency assistance and were funded by the county to assist. So if you want to start with the organizations that are in your district, those are the 4 that provide emergency assistance. We've also funded the Council on Aging in District 5 that provides senior assistance, and the People's Town Neighborhood Association was also funded, and they provide senior meals and emergency assistance. So those are your District 5 funded organizations, but don't hesitate to contact any organization on the list if you are in need for the specific need that you want. I just wanted to have those that were funding that were right in your back door. So the last thing I'd like to use some time to highlight is our Arts and Culture Department, along with our Senior Services Department, has also identified a number of online virtual arts programs that you can use to help pass this time that we're spending at home. To register for those classes and to access those services, please visit the Fulton County Arts and Culture website at fultonarts.org, and there will be a link there to access our virtual classes that begin on April 20th and go all the way through May 16th. If you do not have access to a computer, or you would prefer to speak with someone in person about those classes, please feel free to call the Customer Service Center at 44612-4000. That summarizes all of the services that are provided virtually and that we're continuing to provide to our community. And I'll be available for questions, as well as provide all of the ways to access services and testing to Commissioner Arrington's office for your convenience. I'll be here for questions afterwards as well. Thank you, Commissioner Arrington.
Thank you, Madam Chief Operating Officer, for that great update. Up next, we've got Fran Calhoun to talk briefly about Census 2020. I've got on my Census 2020 shirt. We need everyone to get registered for the census. It really makes a difference in the amount of money that we get from the federal government and the state government, and can literally provide millions of dollars for Fulton County. So, Fran, if you're on and you'll give us our 2020 census update, please.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and everyone present. I am pleased to be here to speak about the census, Fulton County's efforts on 2020 census. Of course, even though we are sheltered in place, the census continues. It is active and open for responses, and we have been sharing with the public that there are several ways, and I'm not sure if you're seeing my screen. I was told someone was going to put it up for us. There is a presentation. While they're doing that, I would simply say that we were delighted that Fulton County hit 50% this past weekend, and we are now standing at 50.7% for our responses throughout the county. A little bit ahead of Georgia at 50.4 and trailing by about 3 points behind the nation. So the census is continuing. We are so fortunate that the census is online for the first time for everyone this cycle, that while folk are sheltering in place, that they can, of course, go online and to complete the census and of course, by phone. And so we'll say a little bit more about that. But since we have a broad listening audience, I would like to at least share briefly that the census is constitutionally mandated. If we can go to the next slide, please. It is constitutionally mandated, and there are three core messages in addition to the overarching message that everyone counts in the census. It is the most inclusive public involvement activity we have in our nation. And so a person does not have to be a citizen. That question did come up about a year and a half ago, but there is no census citizenship question on the census. And so everyone who is living and breathing and living here in the country for the majority of the year, that's 6 months and a day, should be counted in the 2020 census. And of course, as you mentioned, it is more than a simple head count. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so, as I said, that there are three ways to respond to the census. We can respond this time around by internet, by phone. It's optimized for your smartphone, online or on your tablet. And then, of course, there are 13 helplines that are available to the public based on language. And so what you see here on the screen is the English direct contact. Those are toll-free numbers. And there is one for Spanish and Chinese and French and so forth. There are 13. And we would simply ask the public to, of course, go to the website there to select the phone number for the language that they need to respond in. Of course, we still have the mail-in option, and folk can respond to the letter that they should have received mid-March to complete the census also by mail. The second thing, next slide, please, is that the census is safe. The Census Bureau, since this is a constitutionally mandated activity, the activity itself is also protected by federal law. And you'll note here the fines and penalties that are in place for any violation and mishandling of that data. The most important thing also for us to know is that the Census Bureau, its aim is to create statistics about the nation. And so for 72 years, that data is extracted from the name. So, you know, we utilize for genealogy purposes the census to go back and look at our family line. We now can access the 1940 census, but that is as far as we can go. And that's because of this kind of embargoed status of 72 years. And that at one time was the lifespan that was the national lifespan rate, mortality rate. So in any case, we are also indicated or have heard from the federal government that the online submissions are encrypted. And so once you push send, that information does go into a special encrypted code. And of course, again, is separated for processing. So what they're looking for is really the what and not so much the who. Next slide, please. Now, what I wanted to do was just to add a quick message about scams. We have seen that there have been persons out there trying to take advantage of the census activity around the nation. It started with some of the recruiting efforts. We're now seeing emails that are going out and phone calls that are going out to the public about the census. The Census Bureau is not calling anyone. They are not emailing anyone. The key thing to remember also is that the Census Bureau will never ask you personal financial data, nor will they ask you about your political affiliation. This is a nonpartisan activity that is a purely statistical exercise. Next slide, please. And the third thing that is a part of that core message is that the census is important. As Vice Chair Arrington mentioned, there are billions that come to our state because of our population count in the census. It has been noted that about $2,300 in annual federal funding will come to Georgia for every person who is counted in the 2020 census. Of course, you also note on the screen fair representation in the House of Representatives and all of our levels of government, as well as the data that both the public and the private sector depend upon for planning purposes. We know that on the public side, for school systems, it's how they determine how many schools they need to build. On the private side, it determines where, of course, they want to develop business and the feasibility studies that are developed to rely on that data, as well as, of course, in emergency planning, something, of course, that we oversee for our county. Next slide, please. Here, I wanted to just outline where we are in terms of the billions that have come into the state. In addition to the revenues that we collect internally to the state, the federal government sends an annual allotment. We hit the $23 billion mark in fiscal year 2016. It has been estimated that we will surpass the $30 billion mark if we can get a complete count. Now that dollar amount is for 55 federal programs. There are about 325 programs that the federal government funds based on census data. That number that you see, as I put in parentheses, that's despite the undercounts that we experienced in the 2010 census. And so as we look to fully address all of the needs and services in the county that we have, we certainly want to make sure that we have a complete count to do that. All right. Just wanted to show a map here of some of those undercounts. I won't go into detail, but you'll see that the darkest numbers are where you have the largest undercounts, and that's where we need to really continue our outreach in the county to residents to ensure that they are counted. Next slide, please. These are some of the activities that have been taking place. Of course, beginning March 16th, we had to go from in-person events to digital events. And so you'll see some of what Fulton County has done in the way of paid media, hard mailings, as well as some digital events such as these Zoom sessions. Next slide, please. And here is just a slide to wrap up to say how our community members can participate. We are imploring every organization, church, community, and civic league to please mention the census in your newsletter. They can come to our site at fultoncountyga.gov/2020 census to get those tools and resources that they can cut and paste for their members throughout the community. And so, Commissioner and Vice Chair Arrington, we appreciate the opportunity to just share a quick update about what's going on with the census.
Thank you, friend. Census is very important, so everyone please spread the word and please get it done. I actually did mine this past weekend. It took about 3 minutes to complete, so it does not take any time to do. Up next, we've got Richard Barron to provide us an update on absentee ballots, and I assume also the upcoming election. Mr. Barron, are you there?
Sorry, I was muted. We have, thanks Commissioner Arrington, we have received so far approximately 127,000 absentee ballot applications. I don't know what we received in the mail yesterday, but that's close to the current count. 105,000 of those approximately are we received through the mail, and the other 22,000 we received via email and fax. With regard to the faxed applications, voters will get a confirmation if they fax the application. Currently, we don't have the capability to confirm receipt by email because it's a group email, and IT is working on getting a confirmation via email. Voters can take a picture and email the applications to us if they don't want to put them in the mail. With regard to the applications that we've received by mail, we've processed through yesterday 16,391 of those. We've processed about another 700 of the emails. We hope to have that 16,000 number up to close to 70,000, or actually probably 75,000 by Sunday. And those, once we enter those applications, they are then transmitted to the state, who then uses their third-party vendor located in Arizona to mail out those ballots. There is apparently the instructions that the state sent out talks about putting the ballot into a secrecy envelope. What was included is a sleeve. And so all the voter needs to do is just put the absentee ballot into the sleeve and then into the outer envelope, and it'll be fine. They need to make sure that they sign that envelope. We've rejected so far 392 absentee ballot applications. There are two reasons we reject absentee ballot applications. One is that the voter fails to sign the application, and the other is that they fail to choose a party. If they choose a party, if they fail to choose a party, we will contact them by phone and get it verbally from them. If they send in an application without a signature, we mail that back to them so that they can sign it and get it back to us. We are going to have 20 ballot box drop locations around the county. We've chosen the locations. The PO went out to order those 20 ballot boxes, and then we've worked with IT to get those installed, or IT and Dream to get those installed and get cameras, because we have to have 24-hour surveillance on those boxes. And GIS is going to put out an application out on the website so that voters can figure out or find the nearest drop box location to them. I want to stress the importance of voting by mail in this election versus voting in person. We will, of course, have the option to vote in person. We have 4 locations for early voting that are set: the South Annex, C.T. Martin Auditorium, Sandy Springs Library, and the Alpharetta Library. We are working to try to find a 5th location in the Buckhead Midtown area, because we have a big hole in that area, since Northside Library, Ponce Library, and Buckhead Library are unavailable due to renovation. We are currently looking at Garden Hills Elementary. But according to news reports, 40 people were infected with COVID-19 due to the Wisconsin election a couple weeks ago. Therefore, it's important that people vote by mail. We've already received far more applications for this election than we had turnout in the 2016 general primary. Once we hit that 106,000 application mark, that equaled the turnout for the 2016 general primary. So if all the people return their ballots that have asked for them, our turnout for this election is going to far exceed 2016's general primary. If someone voted in the March presidential preference primary, those ballots are going to count. They will receive a ballot that does not have president on it when they get their general primary ballot. If someone requests an absentee ballot and did not vote in the PPP in March, they will get a ballot that has president on it. The voters can, of course, choose from Republican and Democrat as a party. There's also an option for nonpartisan. On the nonpartisan ballot, a voter will receive, will see only school district and school board member and judicial races. So that can be confusing sometimes to voters. They don't want to pick a party, so they choose nonpartisan. And then when they get the ballot, they realize there's nothing on it that I think what they usually do is they think they're going to get selections from all the parties, from both parties. So that it's important that they understand the nonpartisan ballot is only judicial and school board races. We have enough poll workers or election day poll workers right now. We are losing polling sites by the day. We've lost about 10 in the last week, and we are trying to either consolidate those locations at others so we can get those squared away by the end of this week, so that we can get notices out to the voters to let them know where their polling location will be for their precinct. We probably will have in the neighborhood of 180 to 185 polling locations, down from the 198 that we had anticipated. A number of locations have dropped out due to the pandemic, and So we're trying to work with other locations to retain those. And I think with regard to the election, that is all I have. I just want to stress the importance of voting by mail, just to protect your community and your neighbors, because this virus is very contagious. And we have lost, we did lose a member of our staff to COVID, and another one was infected but has recovered, and his wife also got infected and recovered.
Well, thank you, Mr. Barron, for that update. Certainly glad to hear about the recovery of the employee and his wife, and sorry to hear about the loss of the employee. What is the deadline for return of the applications for absentee ballots?
Oh, that's a good question. June 5th is the last day that you can apply for an absentee ballot. My suggestion is to do it much sooner than June 5th, of course, because if you mail it in on the 15th or send it to us, it is going to be difficult for us to get that ballot. The third-party vendor that the state is using mails the ballots, and they're mailing them from Arizona. So it is important to get the applications in sooner rather than later. And we can receive absentee ballots until 7 p.m. on election night, which is June 9th. Early voting also at those 4 locations I mentioned earlier will be open. We will have, the hours will be 9 to 4:30 Monday from May 18th to June 5th. We will also be open on the Saturday, May 30th from 9 to 4:30. We will have sneeze guards up. We will also have, all the poll workers will be wearing masks and face shields, gloves. We will also have sanitizer for the voters. To vote on the voting machines, we've ordered styluses as well in order for the voters, and we will just sanitize those so that we don't have to sanitize the machines between each voter, because you have to shut them down every time you sanitize a machine. So a stylus is a much easier option for us.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Barron. Up next, we've got our Chief Judge of the Fulton County Superior Court, Judge Brasher. I know I've been getting questions of parents that won't allow custody because, or visitation because they say they're sheltering in. What advice do you have for, I guess, litigants in the court system as we go through this continued judicial emergency?
Thank you, Commissioner Arrington, for the invitation to join in this virtual town hall today. My hope is that all who hear this are healthy and safe, and that the same is true for your families and your loved ones. As you said, my name is Chris Brasher, and I'm the Chief Judge of the Superior Court here in Fulton County. The Superior Court is the highest level of trial court in our state, and we handle felony criminal cases as well as all types of civil cases, including domestic relations or family law cases. And family law cases make up about 1/3 of our total caseload. Let me begin by assuring you that your court system is open and functioning even through the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the state of emergency, all judges, clerks, sheriff's deputies, and other members of our courthouse staff are working either at the courthouse or remotely to keep the important matters that come before us moving. This is your courthouse, and you deserve to know that it continues to operate to serve our citizens. We're handling many cases and hearings using the technology, just like what we're using here today, to continue operating. I wanted to take a moment to address 2 important issues related to family law cases. The first is, as you mentioned, Commissioner Arrington, it's important to let you know that none of the orders issued by officials on the state, county, or local level limit or suspend the requirement to follow court orders, including child custody orders. Also, the governor has made it clear that none of these emergency orders can be used as a defense for not following a court order. I say that because it's important to note that even in this time of social distancing and sheltering in place, child custody and parenting time orders remain in effect, and the exchange of children as required by those orders is an essential function that must be carried out. Also, our court has made clear that despite the fact that children are not physically in school right now, any orders that use calendars from schools to determine parenting time or custody arrangements remain in effect just as though the children were still in school. So what all that means is that no one can use the COVID-19 pandemic, the shelter-in-place orders, or the state of emergency as an excuse for not following parenting time plans and not abiding by custody orders. If that happens, the person is in contempt of the order and can face jail time. If your co-parent needs to hear this, please let them know. If your co-parent fails to abide by an order already in place, you may file a motion for contempt in the court that issued the order seeking enforcement. Although the process has been slowed down by the current situation, we will handle those contempt actions and violators will face appropriate consequences. In addition to dealing with such behavior in a contempt action, the failure by a parent to follow the court order or using these present circumstances to frustrate the parenting time of a co-parent are things that the court can consider later in deciding whether custodial arrangements should be changed. In other words, something done out of spite or in an effort to take advantage of the situation now can have long-lasting effects on custody decisions. I urge all parents to put their children first. Most importantly, put your child's need to spend time with both parents ahead of your own anger, frustration, or dislike toward your child's co-parent. Your children need you both now more than ever. Please make that a priority in this difficult time. If you don't, you face losing the chance to make important decisions in your child's life later on. The other important issue I want to talk with you about today is the difficult topic of family violence and intimate partner abuse. The evidence is clear that incidents of family and intimate partner abuse have gone up significantly during this time when so many people are facing the stresses of stay-at-home orders, job losses and interruptions, and economic uncertainty. The pressures that these events cause have unfortunately produced an increase in arrests for and reports of domestic violence and abuse. But while we may understand why these things are happening, let me be clear that domestic violence and intimate partner abuse are unacceptable, and our justice system remains as committed as ever to stop such abuse, to help the victims of it, and to punish those responsible for it. If you or someone you know finds themselves in immediate physical danger from violence or abuse, please dial 911 immediately and report it. Also, if you or your child has been the victim of domestic or intimate partner abuse or violence, please reach out for help. You are not alone, and there are many agencies and organizations that are here for you and will help you and your children. Please call the Partnership Against Domestic Violence 24-hour crisis line at 404-873-1766 for help. Also, if you need help filing a domestic relations temporary protective order, you may call the Safe Families Office at our court at 404-612-4324. You can also visit the website of the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, the AVLF, at avlf.org to find out more information about getting help. Please don't suffer in silence or watch your children do so. There are people ready, willing, and able to help you. As it relates to temporary protective orders, we are handling those every day, Monday through Friday in our court. And many of those hearings are being held via teleconferencing. Finally, All TPOs that were in effect as of the time of the judicial emergency in mid-March of this year will remain in effect until the state of emergency is lifted, so as to maintain that protection for those who need it. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to our constituents today. I hope and pray for the health and safety of our community. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Judge Brasher. Very important information. Thank you for sharing. As you can imagine, get a lot of emails and phone calls about everyday practical situations like exchange of custody and visitation. And people, I hope people aren't acting out of anger, but I think people are acting out of fear. You know, it's just good to hear that information. Up next, we've got Chief Judge Cassandra Turk from the Magistrate Court of Fulton County, who will be providing us updates on everything magistrate, including evictions and landlord and tenant disputes.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and thank you, Vice Chairman Arrington, for the invitation. As the Magistrate Court mission is to engage, inform, and empower our community, it's my honor to be with you all today as your Chief Magistrate Judge to bring you an update about Magistrate Court. I do have a brief presentation I am sharing now. I need to make sure that you all can see my screen. I wanted to make sure that I explain to the District 5 residents, take this opportunity to connect you all to the Magistrate Court, and as well as to discuss some of the impact of this pandemic on our court system. As you all know, the Magistrate Court is a fast-moving court. It is a busy court. Last year, we handled over 82,000 cases, resulting in $9.1 million as pass-through funds coming into the county. Our jurisdiction is search and arrest warrants, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We handle our landlord tenant calendar, which is the dispossessory calendar. We also handle small claims calendars, which is cases of $15,000 of less in damages, first appearance hearings for felonies as well as misdemeanors, warrant applications, abandoned motor vehicles, and many more calendars. I have up there our graduation rate for our misdemeanor mental health court, because during this period of time, it's important for us to remember that there are people we are serving that have mental health concerns that are still involved with the courts, and our misdemeanor mental health court compliance calendar is still running, even though our misdemeanor mental health court jail calendar is not running. As you all know, from March 14th until May 14th, we are currently under the statewide judicial emergency that was issued by Chief Justice Melton. As a result of that, there are several calendars that we are not handling. It would be easier for me to tell you what we are doing than what we are not doing. What we are doing is we are continuing those constitutionally required services. And so that is our electronic warrant service. We are continuing first appearance 6 days a week. First appearance is now for misdemeanors at 10 o'clock, for felonies at 1 o'clock. Those calendars are actually being handled by Zoom. And then we are also assisting with felony bond hearings on the non-complex calendar. I believe Judge Brasher is actually doing complex bond hearings. The felony bond hearings are happening 3 days a week. That is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that is also through a Zoom hearing. I want to make sure that people realize that while most of our civil calendars, actually I say most, all of our civil calendars are shut down, we are not handling landlord-tenant matters. We are not handling small claims matters. We are not handling garnishment. And so what does that mean as we look to figure out whether or not we will start back on May 14th, May 18th, or whatever day is currently set for us? What it means is that people should be very clear about what's happening with them. Right now, the statewide judicial emergency does nothing but hold those time limits. Time limits are not being erased, and time limits continue to be calculated. I think people need to be aware that time limits will start again whenever Chief Justice Melton allows us or encourages courts to begin servicing. Right now, as I understand it, there is a May 1st meeting that is scheduled to determine whether or not we will be starting court and when we will be starting court. I want citizens to realize that time limits open when courts reopen. Currently, Magistrate Court is an e-file court for most civil matters, which means if someone has served a dispossessory action on a tenant, please use the e-file system and file. Don't be caught off guard, because when court opens, we will be open trying to deal with the volume that has accumulated, as well as those cases that will continue to flow through Magistrate Court. For tenants, I want them to be aware of several protections that may be available to them, or several options that may be available to them. The Federal CARES Act was signed by the President on March 27, 2020, which gives 120 days of they're calling it an eviction moratorium, but that is only for certain covered properties. In order to determine if a landlord fits within those properties, I would encourage citizens to go to the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, the Atlanta Legal Aid, as well as the Housing Court Assistance Center, which is actually housed over in Magistrate Court. So there are resources available for, and I say citizens, it is for all residents of the state to be able to use that. We are aware during this period of judicial emergency that landlords are stepping up and increasing what it is they are doing in terms of self-helps. To those landlords, self-help evictions are illegal. That has not changed. The law is very clear. Extrajudicial evictions cannot occur. To those citizens being evicted, be aware that a crime is being committed. I would encourage you to call local law enforcement. I'm not giving you legal advice, but law enforcement has the tools with various charges to be able to help you maintain yourself. Law enforcement should be called when landlords are violating the law. I have heard that there are several residents who are concerned because they have immigration status that also causes them not to want to protect themselves during this period of time. Please reach out to Atlanta Legal Aid. Those attorneys are prepared and ready to help you with these situations. And at the end, I just simply want to say thank you again for allowing us to present. It is our mission to inform, engage, and empower our community. And I am happy to be a part of this discussion and happy to figure out what we're going to do in our new normal. I know that I have submitted to some of the commissioners as well as to our justice team what it is we believe a start back will look like. And I will tell anyone listening that the best place to find that out is on magistratefulton.org. That is our website. We have a chat bot you can also participate in to help us help you. More than likely, we will begin with our civil cases, which would be our landlord tenant, our small claims, as well as continuing, and our garnishment, as well as continuing to handle the electronic warrants and bond and first appearance. So that is what Magistrate Court will be looking like as we begin. And again, thank you for the opportunity, Vice Chairman Arrington.
Thank you, Chief Judge Kirk, for that great update on the Magistrate Court and all that is occurring and all that is not occurring currently.
Right.
Up next, we've got Jessica Corbett to talk about online services available through Fulton County's website and available to all Fulton County residents. Jessica, are you there? Looks like we might be missing Jessica.
I think you guys are just muted. There she is. She's getting it.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, awesome.
We had a small technical difficulty. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much. I was going to try to share my screen. I'm not sure that I am able to do that, but wanted to be able to show everyone Several of the panelists have mentioned the Fulton County website and our online services. So I think for us, the message is that while Fulton County buildings are closed to the public, Fulton County is very much open for business and serving people every day, although in a modified way. The blessing of this pandemic is really that we have been able to adopt technology and tools to serve people much faster than we would have in a normal environment. So I think that's something that as difficult as this has been for everyone, for our families and for the people of Fulton County, we have found new ways to adapt and provide services. So the Fulton County website is fultoncountyga.gov. And as you can see, we have kind of transformed the homepage into a hub of information about Fulton County, or excuse me, about COVID-19 and about resources to help people. So this first red banner at the very top of the page highlights the services that are available to people in the midst of pandemic. Many of our services are still available online, and this is a place to find out what those modifications are. The green banner is highlighting the town hall, which we are participating in right now. And then on the blue banner, you see information about testing sites. So testing has expanded, as the county manager and the COO mentioned earlier. Testing is much more available than it was at the beginning of the pandemic, as test kits have become more accessible to us and as more partners are doing testing. So we encourage anyone who is eligible for testing, who is symptomatic or in one of the risk groups, to take advantage of that service. It is free. They do have to go through a screening process, but we encourage them to take advantage of that. Here at the top of the page, we have our coronavirus page, because I think we would agree that this is a crisis that is affecting us all. And what we've done here, sir, is create a hub of information. So residents can come to this page, they can see what is the data, what are the data trends in terms of cases and where we are with the pandemic itself. But below that, we have many online resources. So testing sites, a location to get information about food and meals. We have a lot of FGTV programming, online services that are available, and videos and things of that nature. I also wanted to, again, call attention to some of the departments that have adapted their programming to serve constituents in an online environment. So Judge Brasher and Judge Kirk talked about the amazing transformation that has occurred in the justice system, which is allowing those constitutionally mandated services to continue even in the midst of a pandemic. So that's one example, a really important and large example of a modified service in the midst of this epidemic. And so as constituents, as defendants or individuals involved in the justice system have a hearing, they may find it is conducted in a new way. Another example that the COO highlighted earlier is about our senior services department. And so there is a lot of myth. It's true that some seniors are not comfortable with technology or not familiar with technology, but many, many, many people are comfortable with technology. And so they're offering a really robust series of classes through Zoom and through video conferencing, everything from jewelry making to fitness and things of that nature. So it's very exciting, and they've done a really great job with that. Another example is our Department of Behavioral Health. So they have modified some of their programming. They have served thousands of clients during this time, and they are offering Facebook chats or YouTube chats where they highlight some of the topics that are relevant, especially with the stress that people are going through. Judge Brasher mentioned the stress and the impact that is having. I think all of us have probably experienced that or have known people who are going through depression, anxiety, and really having a hard time coping. So those are one way of kind of doing some outreach in a digital space. And then the last one I would highlight is our arts department, which is doing some great work around connecting artists and connecting people with art through technology. The library is another fantastic example. They have, you can get a library book online. You can check out digital materials. You can watch a daily Facebook story time. So I'm really proud as a longtime Fulton County employee. I'm very proud of the way that our departments have responded and are continuing to try to serve our residents in this difficult time. Would encourage anyone to go to our website to learn not only about those services. Going back to Mr. Barron's comments, there is a lot happening with elections. We would encourage voters to come to the site and get information about those services as well. But thank you, Commissioner Arrington, for the opportunity, and thank you to everyone for the great information shared today.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett, for that update and for your continued work throughout this COVID-19 crisis. Up next, we have Ms. Regina Waller, who maybe will share public comments with us and or questions.
Good afternoon. Currently, we have 3 attendees, and I will introduce each to see if there are any public comments from those ladies that are here. Ms. Cecilia Jeffries, is there a question or a comment that you have for the vice chair or the panel? All right, I will move to our next attendee, Ms. Gwendolyn Williams. If there is a question that you have for the vice chair or the panel, you may speak. And then our final attendee, Ms. Jean Fashina. If you have a question for the vice chair or the panel, we have unmuted you.
Hi, my question is, what relief is being offered for landlords who just have one property and we depend upon that rent money for our income as well? I've been furloughed from my job and I don't have a renter because of the COVID-19 thing. But I don't see where any relief is being offered for us. There's relief being offered for renters, but nothing for a single property landlord.
Well, that is a good point and a good topic. We may have to look at that from a county standpoint. I know in our initial outlay of $10 million, we outlaid money for small businesses, which could potentially include a single landlord that owns a business. But we may have to, or who is renting and relying on that income for their survival. We are right now, I think we are scheduled to receive about $105 million from the federal government for COVID-19 response. I think we are budgeting currently about $48 million from this year's budget to be spent on COVID-19, and that's just current numbers. So perhaps we may be able to look at doing something for some type of landlord relief pool or fund. I don't know if Judge Kirk or if our county manager may have any ideas on that, but it looks like we may be missing them. So I'll make sure. Okay.
So I'm sorry, it's Judge Kirk. I am here. Ms. Fashina, if you would look at the Georgia CARES Act, I'm sorry, the Federal CARES Act, there are some protections for landlords who have federally backed mortgages. So if you fall into that category, there may be some protections that are available. The question is going to be figuring out what law is going to be able to help you. I would tell you to start with Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers, although their focus is really tenant focused, as is the same for Atlanta Legal Aid, but at least that is a group that has been actively looking at this issue in terms of which tenants and which landlords will qualify.
And Mr. County Manager, I don't know if you have any ideas about that, but maybe the board will consider looking at some additional monies for small businesses. Her question in particular, Mr. Manager, was what relief is available for landlords. She sees relief that's available for tenants, but she has one property and relies on that for her income.
Yes, sir. I did hear that question when I stepped out, and I think that would be something that the board would have to consider as a new program, because we don't have it other than what Judge Turk just said. I'm not aware of any.
But perhaps even if we do a second round of funding for small businesses, maybe we could expand it to include businesses that I guess is more like a DBA probably. She probably doesn't have a company set up, but she is actually conducting a business.
Yes, sir.
All right, Vice Chairman Arrington and the panel, in addition to the attendees, we did have one question from our YouTube group, and that question is, who is providing meals for the seniors? How can I get the services for those at my church?
Commissioner Arrington, if you would like, I could address that question.
Okay, perfect. Yes, if you could do a list. I know we have several different groups, including Meals on Wheels and Hosea Feast the Hungry, but I know you have a better list than I do.
Yes, sir. I can help out with that. We have the following nonprofits that we have funded to assist with meals for seniors: QLS Services, Project Open Hand, the North and South Fulton Senior Services, GoodR, G-O-O-D, the letter R, the Council on Aging, Piccadilly, National Church Residences, Project Grand, that's spelled G-R-A-N-D-D, the Pittsburgh Collaborative, and Peoplestown NPUV.
And,
in addition,
if you will, I think we allocated roughly $4.5 million towards that, or was there a smaller amount that was allocated towards meals? I know 4.5 million was for seniors, but all of that may not have been for meals.
Correct, that's correct, Commissioner. What I have so far is $2 million for those organizations I just outlined. I want to also make sure that I mention that the seniors who were receiving meal services through our senior services departments continue to receive those services as well. And so you have our normal allocation for senior meals that are currently going on. Plus this is an addition to those services.
Awesome. So thank you. Hopefully that will answer the question on YouTube. And I know also that the city of East Point has partnered with the Atlanta Community Food Bank, and they're doing a great job of distributing food and groceries throughout the 4 different wards in East Point. And I know the city of South Fulton has also partnered with Atlanta Community Food Bank for the distribution of groceries. So hopefully you know, all of those things will be available for you. And if you or someone you know is in need, please contact one of those organizations or myself, or call our Star line, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with an organization that can help you in your church.
Right. Thank you so much. That concludes all public comments.
Well, again, I want to thank everyone for coming out and participating in this virtual town hall. I think it's very important for people to know that Fulton County government is open, even though the buildings may not be open. Thank all of you for your hard work and dedication as Fulton County employees and just as people working to help other people. It's so important that we help each other. So thank you to everyone for participating. Please continue to practice social distancing and follow the guidelines as outlined by the CDC. Everyone go get tested. Make sure you fill out your, maybe use some of this extra time to fill out your census and maybe even get your absentee ballot in if you so choose. I think I may actually vote by absentee ballot this time myself. So thank you. We hope that you know that Fulton County is here for you. God bless everyone.